You're listening to the Mike on the Right podcast.
The experts were stunned. That is the headline going all across the United States right now on the jobs report that was just released. If you're listening to this is Mike Neal, Mike on the Right podcast. This is the 3rd of July. The news is just breaking right now that the hiring defied expectations in June. 147,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate dropped to 4.1%. The economists were stunned. ADP, who told us we were all screwed and things were going down the tubes, they're wrong. Michael Hicks from Ball State University and all of his data is wrong again. The experts were stunned. U.S. job growth continued at a steady rate. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Steady pace last month, surprising economists who had predicted a slowdown in hiring amid uncertainty over trade and fiscal policy. We're not having it, folks. Look, you can say what you want about tariffs. You can say what you want about tariffs, and there's concern, and there's all kinds of things going around. But right now, nothing that has been predicted is occurring. I've not seen prices go up in my store. I've not seen all these layoffs. There are always these little layoffs here and there because that just happens in a general economy and when companies restructure and all this kind of stuff. None of that is happening right now. So don't give me this Donald Trump is bad for America. Donald Trump is destroying the economy. Say what you want about Donald Trump. You don't have to like him. I'm not telling you have to like him. I am not a Trump worshiper. But he has not been wrong. And don't even get me started about all the court stuff. This was not even supposed to be part of the show. I'm watching on TV right now. If you're watching on video, you can't see it, but I'm pointing at it. It's happening live right now. The experts were stunned. It's not about your ideology. This isn't about Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. This is about facts. And the facts are saying right now that so far, what is happening is working. What is happening is not affecting the economy the way the left and the way these economists are predicting. So don't buy into it. As I said, that's all bonus. Welcome to the Mike on the Right show for July 3rd. This is the 10th episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support. Please like, share, subscribe, 5 stars, whatever you can do to continue to help show your support for the show and help us get this out there. I appreciate it. Happy Independence Day Eve. The OG No King's Day. Again, just July 3rd. I'm recording this on a Thursday because tomorrow is Independence Day. I didn't want to record on that. Plus, I don't expect anybody to listen on July 4th. You should be out there waving your American flag, eating your apple pie, out with parties and parades and fireworks and remembering what this day truly means. We're going to get to that in a second. I wish I could do this show every single day. I've said this time and time again because so much is happening. You just got the jobs report. There's stuff going on with Diddy, watching that right now. We've got court cases that are actually telling the left that the president can actually do his job without their permission. It's incredible. There's just so much I want to talk about, and I just can't do it in the time. I mean, we're already almost 4 minutes in already, and I had to do a whole opening monologue over my monologue on the jobs report. Here comes more job stuff again, and the big, beautiful bills get ready to get passed. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. Here's what we're actually supposed to discuss in this episode. A very 4th of July topic. What is American exceptionalism? Why is it important to wave that banner? What it means and what it doesn't mean, especially from a Christian perspective. An update on the big, beautiful bill, which I'm watching right now. It's probably not going to pass by the time I finish recording this show, but we're going to know what's in it, the Trump mega bill. And then Elon Musk has threatened to create a new political party. We're going to explore what that means and what the ramifications are, positive or negative, for America. Before we begin, in honor of July 4th and all the rhetoric that's going on around us right now, let's start with a phrase we've all heard. I want to discuss this. I've talked about this before. If you're a friend of mine on social media prior to me starting this show, is the preamble of the Constitution, specifically the phrase, to form a more perfect union. What does that mean? It's not a perfect union. It's not the perfect union, but it is a more perfect union. And that wording matters. Our founders knew something a lot of people today have forgotten, that freedom is never finished. that self-government is an experiment and a constant struggle, and that America from day one was designed to be a work in progress. Certainly, we've made mistakes across our history, especially bringing over European ideas that have come to this country. And some of those have worked and some of those have not. This country has erred. It has stumbled. We've had dark chapters, and we should never forget those dark chapters, because when we forget history, we are potentially doomed to repeat it. We can't do that. But it also means that we've had the strength, and we have the strength and the freedom to correct them. And we are seeing that every day in America. And that's what makes America exceptional, not perfect. Exceptional and perfect are two different things. We are not a perfect nation. We're an exceptional nation. Because unlike most nations in history, we have been built to improve from the very foundations, to refine and not to repeat. Built to preserve the principles that matter and reject the ones that don't. The Constitution is our guide, our guidebook, our guardrails. It is the original document. I'm an originalist. But it is certainly meant to be built upon through statute. But the core foundation, if it doesn't fit on that foundation, it is not constitutional. And there are people in this country who are tearing it down who don't understand, who haven't studied you don't have to be a constitutional scholar. This document is built and written for everyone, for everyday Americans, not Harvard scholars, although it is theirs too, but it is not only theirs. I can't stand when people say, I'm a constitutional lawyer. You don't understand as much as I do. Sure, you have gone into a degree path to understand and study the Constitution, but that doesn't mean that someone who hasn't is wrong. That doesn't mean that somebody who hasn't... This document is for everyone. But there are people who are tearing down this country that don't understand that. They act like the flaws are a proof of failure. They act like our sins erase the foundational truths, our founding truths. That is absolutely untrue. They want to replace our system instead of fulfilling it. There is no greater measure. There is no greater form of government than a constitutional republic. Period. It's not perfect, but there are none better. Monarchs and parliamentary systems and all those things, no, none of them compare to the Constitution and the form of government of the United States of America. The genius of America is not that we have everything right the first time. It's that we've been fighting to get it right ever since we started to form a more perfect union. So today and this week, as we celebrate freedom, as we reflect on who we are as a nation, I want to start with this reminder. America is exceptional, not because we've reached the mountaintop, but because we're still climbing and we're doing it together. And by the way, that brings us to the first topic I wanted to talk about. The importance of American exceptionalism, and why is that important? It's fitting you're listening around the July 4th holiday. It's not just a holiday. It is the day that this nation declared its independence from a tyrannical government and taxation without representation, and something we were about to fight a war over. There's a reason the world still watches what America does, because deep down they know what some of our own citizens have forgotten. America is different. America is exceptional. America isn't just another country on the map. It was a revolutionary experiment in self-government, rooted in the radical idea that our rights come from God, not from kings or bureaucrats. And that was unheard of at the time. And in some places it still is. I mean, all the kings of the United Kingdom and Spain and all the places that had monarchs, and some of them still do. They're much more tempered today, of course, because people are starting to figure out and see what America has done without a king, and we've been far more successful. The phrase American exceptionalism gets thrown around a lot, but let's be clear, it doesn't mean we're perfect, just as we talked about. It means that we are fundamentally different by design. And that difference has changed the world. While most nations evolved slowly from monarchies, class systems, tribal rule, America was founded with a declaration, not of war, though that's what it led to, but of principle, that all men are created equal. It wasn't a cliche, it was a battle cry. And there's been times where we have not lived up to that because we didn't fully understand what it meant. And we are doing better today, and we are going to continue to do better on that foundation of all men are created equal. Not all outcomes. You're created equal. The outcome is up to you. Our Constitution, despite what college professors say today, remains the longest standing written charter of government still in use. That's not an accident. That's exceptional. It's a testament to the foreknowledge and the foresight of our founding fathers. And what has that system produced? The most prosperous, most generous, most innovative, most liberating force that the world has ever seen. And that's just not a feeling. That is an absolute, undeniable fact. We have helped more people, liberated more people, funded more programs, saved more countries than anyone else in the history of the world, because God has put that mantle and that blessing and that onus on us. That doesn't mean that other countries are bad or woe is them or they suck. That's not what this is about. This is about what we are called to as a nation. And there are certainly limits and guardrails to that. We can't help everybody all the time. But we were built to help people. We didn't just win wars, we rebuilt the nations we defeated. We didn't colonize the world. We helped to free it. But here's the problem. We have forgotten this. We have forgotten what American exceptionalism really means. A generation is growing up being told that America is the villain, that we're irredeemable, built on sin and exploitation. We've got to tear down all these statues and change all these names and change all these definitions of the way life has been. That kind of thinking doesn't just rewrite history. It undermines the entire reason this country works. American exceptionalism isn't just about patriotism. It's not about putting our country before our God. It's about recognizing the uniqueness of our system and fighting to preserve it when others want to trade it away for comfort or control or some ideology that has never worked, like communism and socialism. You can't export freedom if you don't believe you deserve it yourself either. God has given us this constitutional republic. It is our responsibility to use it correctly and to use it the way God designed it to be used. And right now, a lot of our elites don't believe in this country anymore. They believe in globalism. Not that we don't need other countries. We don't need to trade with other countries. We don't want to visit their cultures and even bring their cultures here or take our culture there. But globalism, at its core, takes away our borders, our identity, and it gives it away, especially to the control of others. They believe in a managed decline. They believe in bureaucracy. But I believe this country is still worth fighting for because what we have here, nobody else has. It's the system that lets the son of a farmer become a United States senator. A culture that encourages innovation, invention, resilience. A people who, despite all of the division that the media feeds us and that political parties feed us, they still rally together when it matters. And my final thought, before we move on to the news of the day, you can't defend what you don't love, and you won't love what you don't understand. That's why I'm going to keep saying it. America is not just a place. It is a principle. And the moment we stop treating it that way, we lose it. A republic, if you can keep it. Happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day, happy OG No Kings Day. Let's move to the next segment. We're waiting right now. We've got the news going. I don't see any update. It looks like Leader Jeffries, the Democratic leader of the House, is still speaking potentially on the big beautiful bill. My assumption is the United Democratic Front to oppose it. Let's talk about what's going on with this. America's biggest bill since the 2017 Trump-Pence tax cuts isn't some sort of think tank fluff. It is President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. And we're on the brink of a showdown in the House, which is playing out right before us. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a.k.a. the Big Beautiful Bill, is a massive reconciliation package. We talked about this before in the 119th Congress. It passed the House in May. Its original version, 215 to 214 to one voting president. And then it just cleared the Senate 5150 with Vice President Vance breaking the tie. Let's talk about what's in it. This is the final version. What we're going to see here is the final version, so this is really important to talk about now. It extends the Trump-Pence era tax cuts. I am a middle-class wage earner, and I saw about a 3 or 4% increase in my take-home pay when this all happened back in 2017. So it extends those, including corporate tax rates. The SALT deduction is also dramatically higher. That means more in some of the blue states that get screwed by taxes there. I'm excited about this. It increases the child tax credits. It creates the tip and overtime tax deductions. It creates a savings account system for family. I believe that's still in there. If I'm wrong, I apologize. And it increases some defense and border spending, about $150 for military, about $70 billion for immigration staffing and wall expansions, which we need to finish building that wall. We've also seen, by the way, that's not about today, but the absolute cratering of illegal crossings in America is huge, and we've got to continue down that path. But it also brings, this bill, some cuts and some rollbacks that I believe, for the most part, is right-sizing programs, especially Medicaid, work rules for SNAP, grant eligibility restrictions. And some people are saying that a bunch of Americans are going to lose their health insurance. I don't know that to be true. Based on what I read from, U.S. Senator Jim Banks, my friend, Representative Aaron Houchin, Representative Rudy Yakum up from northern Indiana. I was reading a lot of their material yesterday, a lot of the myth-busting documents that they've provided. And what this is doing is right-size. It's bringing us back essentially to things that happened before COVID. We are multiple years removed from the COVID system. We can't continue to let people who are able-bodied workers freeload on Medicaid. We need to save it for those who truly need it, for people who can't afford it through no fault of their own. We have to bring this stuff back. It does reduce some of these clean energy tax credits that were in the Inflation Reduction Act, and it puts other tax incentives forward. Now, the Congressional Budget Office, which is about as wrong as all these economists, like we just saw in the jobs report, says that it's going to add $3.5 trillion to the deficit by 2034, 2035. That's the one thing I always get hooked on, is why do we keep adding to the debt and the deficit? Now, what the White House is saying, and looking at some of the data that they've provided, is that the growth in the economy is going to cover that. So they're essentially spending the money before they have it, but because it's a year-over-year spending plan, that $3.3 trillion is over 10 years. They believe they can eat that. I hadn't done the math, but clearly it's not $3.3 trillion per year. It's $3.3 trillion over 10 years. So perhaps maybe year over year they can find a way to eat that up. That's what the White House has said, and I'm willing to give that a shot. Obviously, the bill was just passed through the Senate, and then as we're hearing right now, it sounds like the Republicans have the votes. I'm still seeing Leader Jeffries, the Democrats, railing against the bill right now. I assume we're going to have a vote sometime after this show records, so my assumption is that it's going to pass, otherwise they wouldn't be preparing for the vote, which will give this vote to the president prior to the 4th of July, which is exactly what he's asked for. So I'm not going to talk much about those GOP holdouts. Looks like these folks have kind of come in line. Chip Roy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, et cetera, et cetera. I assume we're not going to see any Democrats in the House vote for it. I don't know if I have to go back and look to see if Fetterman voted for it in Pennsylvania. It was 50-50, so I'm guessing not. I'm guessing that he didn't vote for it, but I've not looked. Public sentiment, of course, is lukewarm. A lot of my conservative friends are railing against it. A lot of the liberals are railing against it. It's clearly not perfect. I mean, I've read through this again. Do I wish there was more debt reduction? Yes. Am I willing to say, hey, $3.3 trillion over 10 years is not that bad? And is it possible that can be eaten up through increased tax revenues, not because we increased the rate, but because the economy got better? Sure. I think we can get there. I hope we can get there. This is a big deal for America. And I know that there's been some opposition to it. And it's get ready to pass. My onus was going to be call your member of Congress. Ask them these questions. Do what you have to do to get answers. But it looks like right now this bill is about to pass. I am generally supportive of what's in it. I am skeptical about the addition to the deficit. I don't like that. I don't want to add to the debt. I want to start cutting the debt. Not just the deficit needs to go to zero. Then we need a surplus to pay the debt down. We need that, and I hope this bill gets us there. If there's a more comprehensive look, the Wall Street Journal has a great piece talking about what's in the big beautiful bill and the yeses and the nos, what made it, what didn't, what the political fallout might look like. I encourage you to take a look at it. I think I've covered it the best I can while it's happening live on the TV in front of me right now. Let's move on to the final segment that we have for today. I don't want us to run long. I've added a lot to the show already, including my opening rant. Elon Musk and Donald Trump, their little lovers' quarrel continues to occur. And now Elon Musk is talking about creating a third party. And every time a billionaire says, we need a new party, the media swoons. Man, they love this. But here's what they never tell you, that third parties don't solve problems. They make them worse. My libertarian friends are going to throw something at me, and I probably deserve it. Elon Musk, who I actually respect in a number of ways, is now floating the idea of starting a new political party in response to the tiff between him and the President Trump. By the way, I called it. I don't know if I called it on this show because I may have said it prior to starting recording, but I never thought that this was going to work. That there were too many differences between Donald Trump and Elon Musk and their egos and the way their alpha male positions. There was just no way this was ever going to work in perpetuity. Why does he want to start a new political party? Elon's frustrated. He sees both major political parties as corrupt, slow, or out of touch. And honestly, the reason we have Donald Trump today is because of decades of broken promises by Republicans and Democrats in the past. And it's why Donald Trump was so popular in 2016 and why he's made it back again in the 2024 elections. I get it. Americans feel the same. This bill, it better work. This big, beautiful bill. I mean, again, a lot of my friends in Congress and a president that I generally support tell me that this is good. And I've done a lot of reading and research, and I try to cut through the hysteria. And again, if the economy has to boon in order for that addition to the deficit, which again, CBO is probably wrong. They usually are. It has to be eaten up, and then we have to have a surplus. So I get it. But here's the cold truth about a new political party. Our system isn't built for a multi-party democracy or republic. And when you try to force it, against the norm, you get chaos, division, and gridlock. And here's historical proof. This wasn't a political party, ran as independent, but Ross Perot in 1992 split the vote. There's a reason why there's a reason why Bill Clinton won. It wasn't because President Bush was necessarily unpopular. It's because his vote got split. I believe it was like 44% is what Clinton won with, a plurality, nowhere near a majority. He never would have won if Ross Perot hadn't gotten in the race. Now, again, people will tell me, well, it's not your seat, and you just can't say that you should. The facts are the facts. Because at the time, the Democrats were capped. Again, there wasn't a whole lot that President George H.W. Bush was on the hook for. He still would have won re-election because most of those Ross Perot voters were not liberals. Ralph Nader in 2000 tipped Florida away from Al Gore. Thankfully. But I'm sure Al Gore didn't feel that way. I mean, we could have had Gore as president, which would have been terrible on 9/11. The Libertarian Party cost Trump a few key swing states in 2020. Of course, Donald Trump stepped in it too. But every time a third party rises, the side it agrees with most ends up losing. And it's not just a theory. Let's look at the United Kingdom. The conservative party in the United Kingdom is collapsing, but not from a lower vote share. Yeah, it's weird there. Let's put it this way. The Labour Party is not that popular, but Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, took votes away from conservatives on issues that they most generally get along with together. And so Labour won a huge historic majority in Parliament. But they weren't that popular. They didn't win that much more than they normally do. And so it cost that country big. No one has a real majority. They may have a majority of seats, but they definitely don't have a majority of the country. And there's a reckoning there that has to occur. We see this in Israel. The reason Bibi Netanyahu has not been able to form an incredibly stable coalition is because there's like 14 parties that are in the elections. And there's a big 3 or 4 or 5. And he always has to build a coalition. The Likud party can't get enough votes because there's so many other splintered parties and traditional parties and all these. And you always have to build a government of like 4 or 5 parties to get there. And right now things are stable because there's a war, but goodness. You end up with fractured coalitions when fringe parties get a seat at the big table with 5% of the vote. They demand concessions that they don't deserve because they got 3, 4, 5% of the vote. I'm not saying they don't get to be a part of government if they're sitting at the table. But you don't get to be deputy prime minister. You don't get to be, you don't get, you're a seat at the table. You're not leading the table. It's how you get instability, weak mandates, and leaders who can't govern. Look what happened in Canada with Trudeau. They were at the brink of loss until the fight with Trump and Poilievre losing not just his seat but the whole election for conservatives there. But there's a weak minority government in Canada. They can't govern. Happens in Israel, like I said, happens in Germany, happening in Britain. So what should Elon do? Do the same thing that President Trump did. Work from within to strengthen the party that you best align with. When I was a young man in 2010, we created an organization with some friends called the Young Conservatives Alliance because I didn't feel at the time I was called to the party apparatus. And it wasn't until a year or two later that I realized, and the Lord actually spoke to me, he's like, no, it's an imperfect vehicle, but this is the vehicle you're called to. I hate to say it, folks, but the Democratic and the Republican Party in America, those are the vehicles. Creating a third party is just probably going to hurt Republicans and conservatives, and we're going to get another Bill Clinton era that we didn't need. Elon needs to help conservatives take back the GOP from consultants, careerists, and centrists. We need to amplify ideas, not bring disruption. Though sometimes a loss is good for the soul, we're at a time in America where we can't just give up and lose. The conservative movement is building strength. We have an opportunity here, but we need to get everybody on board. There are different walks of life, different perspectives, but conservatives need to be conservative again. We need to be the ideal, the party of family ideals and good social policies and pro-business and pro-economic growth and low taxes. We got to stop getting away from this kind of stuff. And again, I really hope, I keep bringing this back to the big, beautiful bill. I really hope that this deficit doesn't get added. I hope that the economic growth that all this stuff spurs eats that up. But it gives rise to people like Elon Musk. It gave rise to people like Ralph Nader. It gave rise to people like Bill Clinton through Ross Perot. Not once, but twice. Bill Clinton never won a majority, ever. Ever. I know that President Trump didn't win a majority the first time around. I get it. It happens from time to time. But the first election that 43, 44%, nobody should be president of that percentage. Period. Don't fall for the shiny new thing. Don't let your frustration become self-sabotage. Because the two-party system exists. Third parties simply don't build anything in America. They just burn the bridges we're trying to cross. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I know this was all over the place today. There's just so much going on. Still watching leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat leader in the House of Representatives, still railing against the big, beautiful bill. I assume we're going to have a vote here soon. Thank you for listening. Again, thank you for your support. We've built this great cradle of, we've starting to see the data. We're outside the plateau. We're starting to slowly build. We had our best week last week. The audio podcast version is again, kind of slowly growing. We had almost 500 views of the actual full-length video on YouTube, and we caught an algorithm, and we're working to continue to do that because you, as my friends and people that I know, I'm so glad that you're here. I need you to build a foundation and a base, but then I have to build on top of that foundation. And we had an explosion in YouTube. The 9th episode was the most listened to episode, past my first one when there was the excitement. So we got to build that again. So again, like, share, follow, subscribe, 5-star ratings, anything you can do to continue to help build that. I'm going to continue to build it too. Happy Independence Day. Happy OG No Kings Day. God bless you all. Have a great